Purpose Talk, where testimony meets transformation. Episode 3. How do you grieve someone who's still alive? Welcome to Purpose Talk. I'm your host, Chesney, founder of Purpose. Here we have honest conversations about faith, healing, relationships, recovery, purpose, and the real-life struggles that shape who we become. Because everyone has a story, and every story has the potential to become a testimony. So, let's talk. Can I ask you a question? Have you ever missed someone who's still alive? Not because they moved away, not because they passed away, but because somewhere along the journey, the relationship changed. Maybe addiction changed them. Maybe divorce separated you. Maybe they walked away. Maybe you have to set boundaries. Maybe they became someone you no longer recognize. Or maybe you became someone they no longer wanted in their life. That's a different kind of grief because the world understands funerals. People bring flowers, they bring meals, they send cards, they tell you that they're praying for you. But when you're grieving someone who's still alive, there's no funerals, there's no goodbye, no closure, just an empty chair in your heart. Nobody really teaches us how to grieve that. People say things like, just move on. They're still alive, get over it. But grief doesn't only happen when someone dies. Sometimes grief happens because the future you imagine will never happen. You grieve the conversations you'll never have, the memories you thought you'd make, the holidays that will never look the same, the relationship you hope to be restored. You're not only grieving a person, sometimes you're grieving a dream. I think about the story of the prodigal son. We usually focus on the son who left, but have you ever thought about the father? Every morning he looked down that road, not knowing if today would be the day his son would come home. Can you imagine that kind of waiting? Wondering if your child is okay, wondering if they'll ever call, wondering if they'll ever come back. The father loved his son deeply, but he couldn't force him to come home. Some of you know exactly what that feels like. Maybe it's your son, maybe it's your daughter, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's even your parent, maybe it's your best friend. Loving someone while realizing you can't make their decisions for them is one of the hardest forms of grief there is. Can I tell you something that changed my perspective? Love doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes love means praying while releasing control, because there comes a point where you've had every conversation, you've cried every tear, you've done everything you know to do, and now you have to trust God with the part you can't fix. And that's incredibly hard, especially when your heart wants to rescue someone. But healing begins when we stop trying to carry what only God can carry. Maybe today you're grieving someone who's still alive. I want you to know something. God sees that grief. He isn't asking you to pretend it doesn't hurt. Jesus himself stood at Lazarus' tomb and wept, even knowing resurrection was coming. Sometimes tears are not a lack of faith. They're an expression of love. Maybe reconciliation will never come. Maybe it will. Maybe they'll return. Maybe they won't. We don't always know, but we do know this. You can love someone, pray for someone, hope for someone, and still choose healthy boundaries. These things are not opposites. Sometimes they're both acts of love. If you're listening today, I want you to stop carrying guilt for someone else's choices. You didn't create their free will. You can't control it. And you can't heal what they refuse to surrender. That doesn't mean you stop loving them. It means you stop trying to be their savior. Jesus already has that job. Before we go, I want you to think about this question. Is there someone you've been trying to carry that God has been asking you to place into his hands? Not because you've stopped loving them. Not because you finally realized that, but you finally realized that you were never meant to carry them alone. Pray about that. Journal about that. Ask God to help you trust him with the people you love most. Thank you for joining me today on Purpose Talk. If today's conversation spoke to your heart, share it with someone who may be carrying this kind of silent grief. Remember, healing is possible. Growth is intentional, and purpose is revealed when we align our spirit, soul, and body with God. Until next time, keep healing, keep growing, keep becoming who God created you to be. Stay purposed.